Welcome to the Success Times Happiness podcast, a platform dedicated to engaging discussions with inspiring individuals aimed at nurturing personal development. I'm Richard Thompson, your host, a father, entrepreneur, world champion Ultraman, and passionate about all things high performance. Our mission is to empower both ourselves and you to unlocking our fullest potential, recognizing that this life is no dress rehearsal. While I may not have all the answers, this show serves as our collective journey to uncover them. Today we sit down with Caroline Hutchinson, a beloved voice of the Sunshine Coast Radio for over 26 years. Caroline has been a cornerstone of the community, connecting people through her authenticity, humour, and heartfelt storytelling. Beyond her successful career in broadcasting, she is a champion for charitable causes, notably raising millions for the Give Me 5 campaign. Her dedication to her craft, her family, and her community makes her a truly inspiring figure who has touched countless lives. Expect to learn all about resilience and Caroline's adaptability during her remarkable radio career, how she balanced the demands of a high-profile job with raising a family, and the profound impact of the community-focused initiatives like Give Me 5 and why giving back matters. All right, let's dive into this incredible conversation. Caroline Hutchinson, thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Richard Thompson, thank you for having me.
Now, you're here, I guess, in part because for over a quarter of a century, you've been on the radio on the Sunshine Coast with Mix FM. How does that feel?
Quick. It just feels like it went in a blink of an eye, you know. I mean, realistically, you were a child when I was on the radio, you know, and I am. The thought of that astounds me, that I've just been doing this every day for 26 years. But I've loved it. It's radio changes, you know. It doesn't feel like I've done the same job every day. It's not a shoelace factory, you know. It's quite fluid and very fun, and I've really enjoyed it. I'm just finished.
When you reflect back on that sort of significant time period, obviously so many things happen. If you think back to anyone listening, things back to 25, 26 years of their life and think what has occurred over that period of time, it's enormous. But to have that one, I mean, your family's there and you as a consistent piece, but to have the work so consistent, what's been like the couple of your most memorable moments?
I would say my most memorable moments are two of them. One of them, which will surprise nobody, is 9/11. So that was obviously 2001, and it's hard for people to imagine this, but smartphones didn't exist. And so people were getting their information from the radio. So Australia woke up at 4 a.m. to the news that the planes had gone into the tower. People still got in their cars and went to work that day, and they were desperate for information. The thing was, back then, there was nowhere to get it other than from the radio. And I had a computer. The internet existed, obviously, and so I was getting the real-time information. And I happened to have a friend who was in New York, and so we were talking to her, and I felt like it was the day when I realised how and I'd only been at Mix FM a couple of years then, how powerful radio was, and that we were really the place people were getting their information in real time, which to this day, in my mind, is why radio will never die. When everything else is collapsing, radio will just be the live and local thing that will never give in, you know, even if the radio breakfast announcer leaves.
Well, yet to see whether it crashes with your departure. And the second most memorable?
And the second one, I'm going to say one thing, but it encapsulates many, many things. I have been a part of a fundraiser called Give Me 5. We've raised $8 million. It's huge, and I'm very, very proud of it. But what Give Me 5 represents to me is a lot of kids that I have got to know who may or maybe didn't survive. And there was always, every year with every Give Me Five, there was always a kid in my sights where I'd be like, okay, well, we need that because that person needs it. And it might be because the hospital had put them forward, or I'd said, hey, what's going on with this? You know, for different reasons, we'd have a focus every year. And one of those that really sticks with me the most is a little girl called Jessie Schroeder. And she was 6. She was a week before her 6th birthday, where she was diagnosed with a stage 4 Wilms tumour. Very, very common in children, and stage 4, very, very bad. So she lived until she was about 7.5, and she was beautiful, a beautiful kid, a lot of spark, heaps of spark right to the last moment. And we started something called Jessie's Party for her. And to me, she's a lot of kids. You know, she's just Jessie, but she's a lot of kids.
What she represents.
Mm-hmm.
Take me back. Grew up in WA.
Yes. I'm from Margaret River in WA, and my family's still there. So very small town, you know, and that's, I think, what still drives me to this day is that everything feels like a small town to me. You know, I just feel like people, I love connections, I love people, and I think it's just from growing up in a town where everyone knew me and I knew everyone, and I like it like that. And
what caused you to move to the East Coast?
Radio.
Okay.
So I went to radio school in Sydney, and that's where I met John, who I'm married to. So then we embarked on this journey around Australia, he and I. So by the time we got here, we'd been married 10 years, and this was our 10th town we lived in.
Oh, wow.
We'd moved that fast.
Touring
country.
Work.
Back in those days, and it's probably still true, but back in those days, that's how you got ahead in radio. You just went to a slightly bigger market.
Yeah.
So you just went Bunbury, Mandurah, Geraldton, Shepparton, Albury, like that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And then ultimately ended up here.
And John's, I'd love to chat to him, but then I'd have almost chat to the whole family on this thing. But
full disclosure, Richard and my son used to work together.
Yes,
and you can go back and find Gabe's interview.
One of the first, which is a treat as well. John's an exceptional human, really is an exceptional human. But he got sick before you came here.
Yeah, he did. So we were at that point. I had Gabe and I had Millie, and we were living in Albury. And he suddenly just couldn't sleep and was losing weight at a rate of knots. Went to about 7 doctors, and then, because he was 32, and eventually someone said, because everyone used to walk up to me at work and say, what's wrong with your husband? I'm like, well, I don't fucking know, do I? You know.
How long have you got?
That's exactly right. And he's really skinny, which is annoying me.
Yeah.
So
he keeps eating.
He's eating like mad anyway. And someone eventually said, there's this great doctor in Wodonga and he will find it. Anyway, so John went to him, and it turns out he had a very, very rare but very treatable cancer. He had something called non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in bone. And he and apparently we learned later that they started to use his X-rays because no one could find it, and the only reason they found it was because of the weight loss. This doctor in Wodonga was like, this weight loss is not normal. You know, this guy's has wasted away, and anyway, so exactly on when he found out he had cancer, I found out I was pregnant with Jemima. Wow. So our baby.
Our third.
Yeah. And we were literally ultrasounded on the same day.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. And so it was a hell of a time. And then he couldn't work for a year. So we packed up and moved to Sydney when Jemima was 4 weeks old. And we lived in Sydney, and that was really tricky. I had 3 jobs in Sydney to keep us going. And so I was getting up at night. At night time I was doing an overnight radio show. And then I was getting up in the morning as soon as I could wake up. John was getting Gabe to school and sorting the kids. And then I was going out, and I was a plus-size model for this very well-known but slightly dodgy fashion label. And then I worked at SBS in the afternoon, so I just went and edited news in the afternoon before I went and did my night job. And that was how we got through Sydney.
Wow.
And then...
How old was Jemima then?
She was just born. We moved there when she was 4 weeks old.
So you're holding down 3 jobs from basically start.
Yeah. And then
How do you reflect on that time?
There's different things I think about that. I think mostly how we could have done it better. We were just existing. And that's not to say we were existing as a couple or as a family, because that side of our life has always been real. We've been lucky, We're a very good family. I look back and I'm so frustrated about the dumb things we did, financially. And instead of just existing, I could have been actually trying to get one good job. That's the thing that frustrates me. But then because I stayed in that shitty radio job, I got the call saying, do you want to apply for a job on the Sunshine Coast? And that's the best thing that ever happened to us. So maybe that's why.
You say you're lucky with family, and I suspect you're specifically talking about John and your relationship. Like, in that period of time where you've got 3 really young kids, he's sick or he's in remission, you're personally getting through 3 jobs. Is there much conversation between the two of you in the sense of, like, are you coming back to each other, or is it just we're in this together?
Just in this together.
And we'll do whatever's necessary.
Very much. In the early days of his cancer, I didn't think he was going to live. Like, that's me. And I'm quite an optimistic person. So I was really like, oh, well, this is it. Now I'm a single mother with 3 children. And then with each treatment, he got stronger and everyone got more optimistic. And then we sort of came out of that. And then it was just, what's next? Like, how do we, at that age, we were so young. I was 20, just turned 28. And we were just trying to work out, well, what's life supposed to look like? Where are we supposed to go? Where will radio take us? Is that what we want? Will that be enough to, have this really great family life that we would both have the white picket fence, And so I think that our minds were just turning over like that the whole time. Like, how do we move forward from this dog paddling to get through sickness?
Are you, at any period of that time, are you like playing victim to the situation that you're in?
No, I don't think so. I think we've always – that's the funny thing. So we were really struggling to live. Sydney in the late 90s was very expensive. It's coming up to the Olympics. Everything is – we are literally living in a flat and neutral bay with 2 bedrooms with 3 kids. And we were paying, I don't know, probably $450 a week for rent, like, it was just really hard. Yeah. And I was earning, I think, $40,000 for my radio job, which is why I had to have 3 jobs. And anyway, so we were just so poor. And one day I was flicking through a Target catalogue, and plus size models weren't really much of a thing then. And I'm flicking through and I see this plus size model, and I just thought to myself, she is just not that pretty. So I, without a word of a lie, I looked up the Yellow Pages and I called a modelling agency that was in Manly, which was close by to us, and it was called AA Modelling. Anyway,
because that was the first one that came up in the Yellow Pages.
So I rang her and I said, have you got any plus size models on your books? And she was like, no, actually, I've been thinking about that. Do you want to meet me? And I was like, yep, sure. So I go down to meet her, and she is old school modelling lady. Like, she's would have been a model when she was younger. Sure. Yeah. Anyway, we're having our coffee, and she looks at me and she just says, "Can I ask you something?" I said, "Yes." And she said, "Why are you so fat?" Anyway, we managed to get past that. I just burst out laughing. I was like, I don't know, I like food. And anyway, she saved our family. There's no doubt about it. Okay. So I started out with her doing just modelling shows. And like I said, it's the late 90s. They've every shopping centre would have a fashion parade, and they'd want a big girl in the fashion parade. So there was quite good work doing that. And then she got me a job as a house model at a company called Delina. And if you asked your mum about Delina, she'd be like, "Oh yeah, I had a Delina dress." They owned about 5 or 6 different really big labels. They did pretty much everything that was sold in Maya, everything that was sold in Kmart.
In-house meaning you're solely working for them.
Yep. So I just go there every day, and they would just fit me. The designers would fit me, and then when the Kmart buyers or the Maya buyers would come through, I would just have to. So they just book me each day, and they were paying me, I think, $40 an hour cash, and they would just pay it to me. It was really, really saved our life.
Yeah, wow. And so then what made so you got the call in the radio to go to the coast.
And so John was born in Queensland. I lived here until he was 12. And when one day I got home at, 2 a.m, whenever I used to get home from my radio job, and he said to me, I sort of woke up and he said, "Oh, you got a call tonight. They want you to apply for a job in Queensland." And I was like, "Oh, do we want to go to Queensland?" Because, Pauline Hanson was around and I knew of her. And he said, "Oh, no, you'd like Queensland." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And anyway, so I rang back the next day and they said, "Yeah, So they flew me up to meet me, and it was a beautiful day. And they took me to the boat shed for lunch, and I said, "Yes, I'd like to work here, thanks." So, yeah, that's it. That was 1998.
And so you moved the whole family.
Yep.
3 kids. John's in remission.
Yep. So by that stage he's in remission, and he'd always worked in radio. So he came up and I sort of got settled, and within a week or so he sort of knocked on the door of the GM and said, "I've always worked in radio. Do you want a sales guy?" And the GM said, "No, I don't. I don't want a sales rep who is the husband of the breakfast announcer, but thanks." So he wrote Nick a letter and he said, "I totally understand that and I respect it, and I'm sorry that if I overstepped a boundary, but I will be out in the market, and hopefully you'll see that I am going to do some good work." Anyway, of course, it worked, and he rang him straight away. Okay. And so then John spent the next 10 years, John ended up being the sales manager at the radio station before he started his own business.
Yeah, right. And when it was that was breakfast from the beginning?
Yep, right from the start.
That was the first time you've done that?
It was the first time I'd done quite a lot of breakfast news.
Yeah, okay.
But it was the first time I'd done 2 things. First time I had done a breakfast show, like a personality show, and it was the first time that I had worked in a radio station where there were resources, where we weren't just on the smell of an oily rag. When I got to Mix FM, I really felt like we'd hit the big time. There was staff, and there was promotions, and there was vehicles, and there was signage, and it felt really, really great.
Yeah,
and it still does. It's a great radio station.
It's incremental. So I'd imagine, and I'm trying to put myself in your shoes and go, okay, I've got 3 young kids. I'm now signing up to not being home for wake-ups.
Yes. Yeah.
And I suspect that you're not signing that contract to move here that expires in 26 years. So I guess you don't, what survives, what helps maybe, does it help to know that, well, this is for a period of time?
Yes.
This is for a season, and we'll see what happens at the end.
And you don't know. So back then, if you had have asked me, I would not have thought I would have survived 10 years. I would have thought they'd kick me off. There's no way they'll let me stay on this.
It's really unusual though, isn't it?
It's very, very unusual. And I think, to be honest, people like me probably have Barbara Walters in the US to thank. So she was probably the first one that went, you don't actually have to sack women when they turn 40. Yeah. You're allowed to keep them employed. And honestly, people my age, Laurel, Edwards, we are the first generation of women that were allowed to stay on the air post,
but it's also
post 40
in the industry, and I don't know whether it's so growing up in Brisbane, it was the case where every radio station would have a breakfast team, and it would constantly change over a couple of years.
That's because they hate each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. But
that's just a fact. Most breakfast teams, you are in such a small studio, and it's just and they just explode. That's all that happens.
It's got nothing to do with the I guess the sentiment of the community, or they want people.
Oh, sometimes
they want to change.
Sometimes they just don't rate.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of the times they implode.
Yeah, right.
That would be a more common reason that breakfast teams fall apart.
And so, what's in your mind going forward, Because there's something obviously.
Can I go back? Because I would just want to tell you something because of what you touched on before about having 3 children.
Yeah, I was going to get back on that.
Yeah. So is that okay?
Yeah,
right,
yeah. Of course.
So when I got here, Gabe's 6, Millie's 3, Jemima's 1, and I would go to work at 4 o'clock in the morning, and then John would get them ready for school or to stay at home, and then a lady came into our house and she looked after them until I could get home, and that she would just be very flexible around that. It was the greatest job ever for a mum with young kids.
Yeah,
because I didn't have to fight with them in the morning. I've literally never got my kids off to school, never once. Like I have never been, because obviously I didn't take my holidays in school time. I would take my holidays in holiday time.
Yeah.
So I do not know what it's like to get kids off to school, but I could always go and do stuff at school. I could go and be at assemblies. I could go to sports days and I could be there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So while it was a really busy time, it was also good for mum.
You didn't feel, I mean, you would have obviously experienced the holiday period, the wake-ups.
Oh, holidays. And I don't know if there is a single parent in the world that isn't tortured by holidays. And I guess unless you're a teacher and you get the same holidays as your kids. But, I mean, is there anything worse than telling your kids they have to go to bloody vacation care or they have to go to some aunties or something like that? Like, honestly, I think I am traumatised by holidays, and I think my kids are too.
But you but you didn't, I guess with work and that decision of going, well, because obviously most jobs will operate somewhere in between a school day hours. Yeah, sure. You didn't, it was an opportunity cost of missing that morning routine, didn't mind?
I didn't mind. And you know what? I also think like that's good for dads. Yeah. You know, I'm not there bossing him around. He had to know when library day was. Yeah. You know, there was no me.
Yeah. Yeah. And was that conversation had, or is that, again, one of those things between you and John? It was like, this is what we do? Just
easy. So easy. You know, when he got sick, when he first got cancer and was at home, I always joke and I say, best thing that ever happened to us, John got cancer. That's a joke, obviously. But suddenly he had been a good, really good dad, really good husband, but the sort of husband that would say, so what do you need me to do? Which is the world's most annoying question. What do you need me to do? Do you know what? I need you to see dirt on the floor and pick it up. And he would. He's never had to ask that question since the moment he got sick. Yeah. He knew he was there.
Yeah, sure.
So you know, it's good. I don't know if cancer is good for couples, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
And then I'd love to talk about, as you've progressed into this role, especially on the coast, which is like a big country town, and certainly the last 25 years, or 26 years, how the coast has developed is extraordinary. I used to holiday up here at my grandparents' unit at Alex on Pacific at Tindara, and we went every summer or every holidays we came up, and like even when this is just for us, I don't know whether the coast will include this because it's boring for anyone else, but where Alex Resort was, it was just grass, right? Wow. To the mandolin. Yeah, wow. And so that's that's how I remember the coast. But for you, you're broadcasting to the community, right? And your value, your brand, I guess, as a human is increasing, and your notoriety is increasing. And as you progressively sit in that chair every single day, it's personality. People are like, I'm listening. I know Caroline. I know her. And there's tens and hundreds of thousands of people who are going, oh yeah, I know
her. So my kids to this day, and they're all adults, hate going to the shops with me. Hate it. Because people, and I like it. I've got no issue with it. But I cannot go to the shops without someone saying to me, oh, are you Caroline? You know, and now actually Gabe, we went for his birthday. I said, what do you want? And he goes, oh, I've probably got a new shirt. And so we went to Maya, and then women were walking up to him and going, you must be Gabe. And is this Rocco? And he is so gracious and he was beautiful. But I could tell, haven't had this conversation with him, but I could tell he was like, oh,
again,
God.
This is what I've been avoiding for the last 10 years. Yeah.
But you know what? I don't care. I really like it. And there are people who are not suited to this job because they do care. They don't like that, but I like it.
And so I guess the following position is boundaries. How have you grown to go, well, obviously you accept the fact that when you're out and about, your guard's down in the sense of I'm part of the fabric here and I need to accept that. Where is the boundaries for you?
Well, when the kids were little, probably two things are true. John was the sales manager at the radio station. So he was not the husband who was at home going, radio is bleeding you dry. He was at home going, oh, well, they've asked, you should go and do that, because he was, promoting, so he had more control over the breakfast announcer than most sales managers ever do. Yeah. And so I did stupid things like, a kindy wanted someone to draw a raffle on a Wednesday night and I'd go and do it, oh yeah, sure, I'll do that. And so we joke about it. I would be driving out on the phone to John as he was driving in, me saying, that's in the oven and that's been done and that hasn't been done and you're going to have to do this, and we would wave at each other driving in and out of the driveway. But he's the one that's
booked you there.
Well, he's the one who's booked me. Exactly. So he can't complain about it. Yeah. So I would, those things, in a way, I'm grateful to them because it's why people think they know me, because I probably went to their casino night in 2002. But at the same time, it was too much. I was exhausted all the time. Right. And so I've learnt in later years, my rule is I just don't like working weekends.
Right.
I'll do anything during the week, but I just see that as work time, and I'm less available on weekends.
Yeah, okay. Have you had experiences? You talked about that time of everything being like that's the lesson of creating the boundaries. But is that burnout for you? How have you been able to manage 26 years in the public without having to need a real step back?
I am someone who I can't even work myself out on this. I'm ambitious and not ambitious. I'm work-focused and not work-focused. I am it's a really tight boundary for me. I don't think that the kids or John would say that I would say I speak zero about work when I'm at home, zero. And that boundary has been really easy for me. Okay. I've just walked in the door and I'm not the breakfast announcer. I'm just the person who shares the house with them. And so I think that is where my longevity has come from. My job has never been my personality.
Yeah. 26 years is a long time. Mm. And to be in a role such as yours, where it is in public eye, where there is notoriety, where there is a sharing of personal and in your control, personal anecdotes, people grow with you. It's going to be someone who's listened to 26 years of it, right?
Yeah.
Probably some out there that religiously, so they don't miss anything. Yes. How have you separated the Caroline on the show, but be private enough to have Caroline at home? And how do you, in retirement, how do you go about separating that I'm not the Caroline?
This is really interesting, and I'm trying to work that out myself because I'm going to, be a business person now, and so that's also is going to require me to play a certain role that is palatable for people. I certainly am not going to miss being Caroline on the radio. I know that. People think I will, and I won't. I won't miss people thinking I can solve their problems, and I won't miss people having an expectation of me. So I'm not going to miss the radio. But what I have not worked out yet is what is still the obligation inside. I haven't had a proper normal job. I haven't been just a business person. So there's still a social obligation there, and I've got to work out what that is.
You touched on expectation. Where were you feeling that?
Oh, that's really so that can come from anywhere. And I built this beast. So, that exactly you touched on it before. I made my own bed. So people will ask me to do anything You think of it. I've had someone ask me if they could come and borrow my dogs because their daughter didn't have a dog, and could I drop my dogs to her? And I have had people. I've written wedding speeches for people who don't feel like they can write a wedding speech and they feel a lot of pressure.
These are people that you don't know?
These people I don't know,
right.
Yeah. And I don't mind it. I don't. There's not, but it is what I will not miss. Because sometimes you're just looking at it. And John says that Facebook is the greatest thing that ever happened to radio announcers, because back in the day, they could only get you on the phone. And they just wanted to have a connection with you so badly, and you just get cornered, and you had to, almost be rude. Whereas via Facebook, people can talk to you all day, and I can just reply all day, and and I can say how beautiful their kids are and all the things that make me happy too. I'm not anti that. But as John says, he says the best thing that happened to you is that people can get to you at all times.
They had a different avenue.
The worst thing that happened to you is people can get to you at all times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how has it been? How is it as a radio presenter? Because I imagine it's across the industry of being your best self, being your consistent self.
Yeah.
Because I'd come into work some days and I'll be filthy. Not anything to do with work, but something's. Yeah. And then I'm like, don't talk to me for a few hours. I need to get through this.
I don't really have that side of it. I don't have that in my personality. I am someone who, if my eyes are open, I'm awake and I'm probably in a good mood.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I am that. Yeah. So that being my best self hasn't been an issue. The only thing that has been an issue is learning. If you have got a slightly dark sense of humour, or if you were raised in the 80s, or if you are used to saying inappropriate things to your family, you have to learn really quickly, and you do learn really quickly not to say those things, because you only have to offend one person, and your day's a nightmare. An absolute nightmare. Suddenly they're calling the
radio
ACMA,
station.
Just they're going higher. They're going to Canberra. They want your license.
Yeah, right.
And so you learn really quickly to operate inside parameters that are very, very palatable but you don't want to compromise too much.
No, you don't want to be too vanilla either.
You can't be too vanilla. That's right. You've got to somehow find the line.
And where did you find the line over that period of time where you've come from a history of the radio wasn't?
Yeah, okay. I had one really, really good lesson very early in the piece. It was Easter in, I'm going to say 1999. So I've been there just such a short amount of time. And we had a conversation about chocolate. And I said, you know what chocolate I hate? I hate Dairy. Everyone else likes Dairy. I hate Dairy chocolate. There's 7 Dairy franchisees are suddenly on the phone crying because I've ruined Easter. Because
Caroline doesn't like the chocolate.
That's right. Shit. And I just realised, but it's a really, really good lesson. Don't go and ruin someone's business for a 25-second radio bit, And that was a really good lesson. And you just don't say negative things about business, And I think about people on Facebook now, and I got a takeaway here, and it was the worst takeaway. I think, geez, you're an asshole. But maybe they just don't know that actually is really hurtful.
Sure.
Yeah.
When your son was on the show,
yes,
he talked about a story.
I have listened,
and I'm repeating this for his benefit and everyone else's if they haven't checked it out. But it was when he was in year 8 going to school, and obviously Mum's on the radio, and Mum talks about how he wears a special pair of undies.
That's not the story.
The Broncos undies, or there's some undies.
The Broncos undies.
So the Broncos special. It's like powerful and like superstitious. So the Broncos would win. He'd wear these special undies, and so his poor kid's bloody 13 going to school, and the whole grade now knows about his choice of underwear.
Yeah, that was. I'm going to dispute that. I think the undies story was that when he's in about grade 4, I made him do the vacuuming, and he vacuumed up Millie's undies. And I said it on the radio, like, oh, God, we had a big drama yesterday because he's vacuumed up his sister's undies, and he's grade 4 and had to go to primary school.
Oh, right. And that's another story of undies, which is fantastic, because now we know 2 stories out of it.
That was the story? Isn't it the vacuuming story? Anyway, I learned very quickly.
Well,
that,
my follow-up question to that is, how have you I think what endears you to the community and maybe an element of the success is how authentic you are. And it's just like, I'm Caroline. Like, if you don't like it, you don't, that's okay. This is me. This is my family. This is my lot. And being so open and honest and being able to share that on that platform. Do you consider what is shared and what is not over that period of time?
I think it's a bit like being a parent, knowing that you can't swear in front of your children. There's something kicks in your brain. You're like, don't say that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That story is not shareable.
That story is just not shareable.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And I don't think, apart from obviously a couple of random undie stories, I don't think that the kids are that traumatised by my radio.
Gay wouldn't say they're random undie story. He still obviously holds on to something of that.
Yeah, but you know what? If your parents haven't done something to make you need therapy, have they really raised you right?
That's the soundbite. That's the soundbite. Fantastic. What have you think the hardest lesson or the hardest lessons have been over that period of time, Caroline? I guess the greatest lessons you've learnt the hard way.
This is a really good lesson, and it's a lesson for everyone. We have a terrible habit of only listening to bad stuff about us. So 10 people can tell you, thank you, Richard. Honestly, you saved my business. You saved my family. You were the person that I needed when I had this terrible legal problem. And then one person says, you are the shittest lawyer in the world and you cost me so much because you're so terrible. And which one do you hear? You only ever hear the bad one. And I learnt a long time ago that if I was going to listen to the people who hated me, I had to listen to the people who liked me. And just
in that proportion.
In that proportion, yep. You have to learn that that it's such a cliche now from the interweb, but what someone else thinks of you is their business, and you've just got to truck on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How is the conversation within yourself about you and?
It's now because I've done it for so long. I love the trolls now. I honestly, if I didn't have someone saying, "Oh, good, I'm so glad she's leaving," I would. They
have you done your job properly?
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly. I do love the trolls, and I think sometimes I'll go down a rabbit hole. Like I'm not like all right then. Well, okay, Debbie from Kalanga. All right then. What's so good about your life? So I but I don't. They don't hurt at all.
Yeah, right.
At all. And they, in fact, I like them.
What does life look like as a grandma now?
I am the person who always, like every parent, just adore my children. Or they are the greatest thing in my life. And I always thought, well, grandchildren will be an extension of my children, but they're just something new. I just love them so much. I can't believe you've made me cry, Richard. They are the greatest gift, and I think that they're a great gift because they're not my problem. Like I only get the very, very best bits
of them.
Yeah, so Gabe's son Rocco, I have just for one day a week, and he and I have the greatest time together. And he loves water play, so I've got the baths all set up. We've got this. I will sit with him for an hour while he splashes. I can guarantee you I never did that with one of my kids. Like I will sit on the floor and read books and play blocks, and I never did that as a parent because you don't have time.
No.
And so you have this different kind of relationship. It's almost like and the baby looks exactly like your child. Like they feel like your children, and you just get to do the good stuff.
So good.
Yeah, it's so good. I love it.
And then in 26 years, would there be any advice as you've progressed to your younger self as to how you would tackle it?
I don't think so. I think that there were times when I maybe wondered if I should have wished for more. So I've got I shouldn't say two, I've got lots of friends that I started out with and they've really kicked on. Like I've got friends who are in LA, Napa, who is on Sunrise. I've got friends who've really kicked some goals in media. And I have had periods where I've thought, should I have had a bigger go at this? Like, have I sold myself a bit short?
It's almost like you talked about how the way you progress in radio is the small town.
Yeah, that's right.
And then at some point you've got to say, well, this is my biggest town.
Yes.
Which on the coast
was good.
Was for you.
Yeah, and that's right. And Gabe had started school at that stage and it just felt right. This is it. We're stopping. Our kids get to go to the same primary school and the same high school like I did when I was a kid, like John did when he was a kid. We are offering that to our children. So it was a very conscious decision that this was our stopping point.
Yeah.
But then, of course, I mean, it doesn't mean you don't second guess yourself.
Sure.
And so there was periods when I did think that. However, now, and this is a sad admission, and I've only admitted this to myself, I don't care. Like if you said to me now, okay, you can, how about you get down there to Sydney and you have a go on a TV couch for breakfast, I'd be like, oh God, I can't be bothered.
Yeah.
Don't want to. And that's, I don't know why. I just feel like that period is over. I don't want that life anymore. I want something different.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah. I like it. So what is that next step?
My very dear friend and I are going to open a business together.
Yeah, she's been on the show.
Oh!
she didn't disclose. So.
Didn't she?
No.
It's really funny because she was been 100% bullied into it by me. So when I resigned, and John, my husband, was quite anti because obviously, radio is a very steady income, and I'm jumping into the abyss. And
so sorry, we have progressed forward a bit further than I would have liked.
Oh, sorry. Go.
What? Yeah, let's go back to. You've come in here and I've assumed you've made this decision, but how did you get to that decision?
So
why now?
Why? Do you mean why did I resign?
Well, why did you decide to step away from radio? Because I saw John only a few weeks ago, and arguably you're at the top of your game.
And that's what he thinks.
Well, he agreed with me. He was more sauced than I was, but
that's right. This has been a very hard period in John's life, let me tell you.
He hasn't come out of it yet.
I know. So I have just done it too long. I really have.
Was there any key moment where you're like,
no, it's everything. Like so, because it's obviously lots of people have tried. Starting with John right up to, obviously my bosses and Mark, who I work with, they've been like, what can we do? What will make you stay? And I can only answer to say you cannot fix one thing because it is 10 things. It is every tenet of it, right down to I am so sick of the sound of my own voice. I'm sick of it. I don't care what I think about anything. I don't, and I'm sure other people don't either. I don't like having opinions anymore.
Yeah,
and that's mainly one of the main reasons. I don't want to keep talking.
You don't want to be the authority.
No, I don't want to be the authority. I don't want to be anyone's authority. That's exactly right, and that's probably the main reason. The other one is that I'm 56, and I just figure if I don't do something new now, then that moment is past.
Was there a scratch to itch on that side of things?
Not really. I feel quite excited about doing something different because there are things about my job that I will always love. I love being busy. I love problem solving.
Right.
I think that is my great gift. If I have a gift, it is that people can come to me and say, this is an issue, and I can probably see a clear path. And that's the work I like to do.
So Lisa Rowe is the guest that we had on that you're talking about as a business partner.
Yes.
For people who aren't on the coast listening, there couldn't be two, and even with the mayor who has been on as well, but between yourself and Lisa Rowe, you guys would be the two most known and the on brand and goodwill on the Sunshine Coast for two females coming together to help business.
Yeah, that's right. What do you need? Yeah, and so Lisa resigned first, and I think that if John bears any ill will, it's towards Lisa because she and I have both done the same. She's run Wishlist for 25 years.
Yeah.
I've been on Mix FM for the same amount of time, and we've very much worked in partnership for that time and been great friends to each other. Anyway, I was getting some pushback from my husband when I said, this is it, I'm done. I am resigning. And he was really like, well,
and these chats were happening after Lisa made the decision?
Yes, this is after Lisa made the decision. And he's like, what are you going to do? And there's just a bit of family folklore. And one of the things he sort of threw at me in that moment was, okay, so you're going to go and do something else and just get bored in 6 months. And I said, yeah, because changing jobs is something I've done so much.
Yeah, there's a common pattern with my flippant focus on employment.
You never know what she's going to do next. And anyway, so that was, it was slightly tense, and that was hard for me too because I was thinking, oh God, well, am I going to be able to exist outside of radio? And anyway, one day I was actually walking out to my line, and I rang Lisa and I said, I go in business together? And she goes, yes. Anyway, and so we just talked about our common skills and the things that we like doing and the ways that we think that we could make something work. And so we went out to our families and told them, and everyone was really pleased. They're all really like, that's a really good idea. It's great. But I need money more than she does. And so I'm a bit more like, let's go. And she's a bit like, hang on, wait, aren't we having a bit of a gap time? And so I've had to, I've had to make her hustle when she probably would have liked to take 6 months off or whatever. But
she's starting on the 1st of December. First meeting.
That's right.
They pitch it to
December 1.
Yeah. Why are you late?
Yeah, exactly. Not really, but we're not really, but we will sort of by early next year we'll be
with the view that what's the elevator pitch?
Okay, the elevator pitch is we know for a fact that there are businesses here all around Australia that spend an enormous amount of money on charitable giving and they don't leverage it. Right. And so there are businesses that might put 200 or 300 grand into corporate giving every year because they're good people. And every now and again they might have the thought, I wonder where that money went. We'll do that paper chase for them. We'll go out and we'll do the socials. We'll populate their websites. We'll do any sort of comms that they need so their staff understand what they've achieved by that giving, so that their clients understand what they achieve. We think that and ultimately that will be good for charities as well because they don't have the time to do it either. Otherwise they would.
Yeah, sure.
Everyone is so busy running their businesses, running their charities. They don't have time to actually shine a light on all of that good work. And we hope that that's a good starting point, which it will evolve from there. But that's what we hope, and that we'll be able to go to companies and say, we know you give, let us shine a light on it.
Yeah, it's just incredible to think, without blowing wind up your skirt, but to have the two of you doing it.
Yeah, I think people will like working with us, and then we like telling people stories. Both of us, we're very similar like that.
Caroline, this has been a treat. I really, really enjoyed it. I don't know, I've struggled with questions. I don't usually do it, but it's probably more so because of the fact that it's such an enormous amount of time and being so relevant and so close to the community, but so far away of it. It's just it's a situation that's not normal for someone to experience.
It's true. I've been really lucky. I've been very lucky that they've let me hang around this long, and that the things that I like doing and have meant something to people in this town too.
Before you go, there's 5 questions. I don't think I've prefaced it with you, so we'll see how.
Okay, I've heard them. I've heard your podcast.
Oh yeah, so you might have getting that gist. But what does success mean to you?
Freedom. I want to have enough money to have holidays and to have fun during the day when I'm working, allegedly working.
What does happiness mean to you?
It means family, friends, sitting on my veranda having a glass of wine, holding a baby.
Playing water, having water play.
Water play, yeah. I don't hold glasses of wine when I do water play. Rocco doesn't like it.
No.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm glad you prefaced that because we would have been inundated by the trolls.
The trolls.
Yeah.
Exactly.
To say that, Caroline is on the sauce.
Yeah.
While caring for her grandson. A book that you would recommend to read?
Oh, gee, I'm a really big reader. I'm going to say this. Oh, gee, this is hard. We could be here all day for this. Read Australian Gospel. It is fresh out. Came out on November 5. It's by a young man called Lek Blaine. Famously, he was in a road accident at a Toowoomba High School in 15 or so years ago when 7 kids died. There was kids in the boot of the car. He was the one person who walked away unscathed from that, and he is a magical storyteller. He then reveals outside of when he wrote a story which is called Crash, I think, about that experience for him. This book is about his childhood. He is the one biological child of these people who were extraordinary foster carers. They were pub owners in Toowoomba, and then they were stalked by the family, by the husband and wife who of the biological parents of the children that came into their care. It is it's a wonderful book about Queensland in the 80s and about pubs and foster kids and being Australian, and it's great. Australian Gospel.
4 people you would invite to dinner, not friends or family.
Not friends or family.
And they could be alive or have previously passed.
Yeah, all right. Paul Kelly. My dad. Oh, is that?
No, I'll count that.
Yeah, you'll count that. My dad. My dad's been dead since 1987. And I still think of him every day. Carrie Bickmore. I like her. I like her a lot. And Dave Grohl.
Nice. It's a beautiful group.
That's going to be a good dinner party.
Yeah, I think so.
You can come.
Oh, well, obviously. Someone has to serve the food and take the dishes away.
Yeah, it's true.
And then someone you would think would be a good guest to have on the show?
Oh, someone here. Had Raylene Boyle.
Okay.
She always tells the truth.
I like that. Caroline, thank you so much for coming on.
And she's an athlete like you. You can talk about running. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been beautiful. That was another episode of the Success Times Happiness podcast. Next time you're listening to the radio, turn to the person next to you and tell them all about the show. Until next time, peace.